cannot prosecute and imprison people because they say things you do not like. There's no quote-unquote hate speech exception to the First Amendment. Plus, what they consider hate speech, Sam, you know what that is. It's not real hate speech.
Right, just left-wing speech.
Yeah, it's any speech that criticizes them. In fact, when a journalist asked Trump a question about Bondi's claim to prosecute hate speech, you know what Trump said in response?
No.
It's people like you that are going to get prosecuted because you're so nasty. He sued the New York Times for $20 billion simply because they're critical of him. Yep. You know, critical speech. And remember when the media platforms were trying to censor hate speech? Who screamed loudly, most loudly in protest?
Trump.
Donald Trump. But hate speech that he likes is just fine, but any speech that criticizes him is not. In fact, he said, when asked about how he's going to crack down on left-wing violence, he said, yeah, would he consider naming the anti-fascist group Antifa? Is Antifa a group?
I don't know.
Who are they?
I don't know.
No, it's a generic name for those who oppose fascism. It's not an organized group like the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers.
Are you sure about that?
Positive.
All right.
I have followed the news on Antifa. No one has ever been able to identify an organized group called Antifa. Okay. Whenever someone, you know, who doesn't agree with Trump politically, they label them Antifa, right, this left-wing terrorist.
No, I know the right wing uses it as a broad sort of boogeyman, but I don't know if there is any sort of formal group or not.
No one's able to identify them. And is there any evidence? Of course, you know, so much of this was said before they even knew who he was. Is there any evidence, if there was an Antifa, that this suspect was associated with them?
Not that I've heard of.
Nothing. Is there any evidence he was associated with any left-wing group?
No.
No. None. So Donald Trump says, yeah, I would consider calling Antifa a terrorist organization. The article goes on to say, it's, as always, it isn't clear who or what exactly Trump would designate. Antifa is a loosely organized movement without a distinct leader or membership. That seems pretty clear.
Yeah.
But the idea that you are going to, whatever it is, you're going to label groups simply because they disagree with you, even though it had nothing to do whatsoever, as far as we know, with the tragedy of the murder of Charlie Kirk. And then to have the Justice Department going after people on the basis of, quote, unquote, hate speech, which is pretty much nothing more than any speech that happens to disagree with them. And here's something really significant. Trump has, you know, cherry-picked violence. You know, inciting political violence, he cited some examples of political violence against Republicans. What did he leave out, Sam?
Any violence perpetrated by far-right extremists.
Or any violence against Democrats, like the former Speaker of the House, like Nancy Pelosi's husband, like Josh Shapiro, like Gretchen Whitmer, leaving out right people who seem to be spewing right-wing rhetoric, right, about invasions, who killed about a dozen people in the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, 19 people in El Paso. I don't remember, but a number of people at a black church a number of years ago. All that stuff is, or how about those who perpetrated crimes in gay nightclubs? You know, there's a huge body count from all of that, and it's totally ignored.
Yep.
And I want to go over this again, even though I went over it last time, because it's so important. You know, to listen to Trump and his allies, you would think left-wing extremist violence is a national plague, a national epidemic, a national calamity. Does he ever say anything about right-wing violence?
No, of course not.
All right. 2024 study by the National Institute of Justice. Since 1990, far-right extremists have taken, in terrorist attacks, 520 lives. During the same period, far left extremists took 78 lives. That's a more than 6-to-1 ratio of right-wing violence to left-wing violence. That's why the study concludes the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism, by the way, including radical Islamic terrorism. Far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or even radical Islamist extremists. But you would never know that listening to our government. And here's the kicker. Here's something nobody knows. I went to look this up again to double check it, and guess what?
What?
I couldn't find it. It's been scrubbed from the government's website by Donald Trump. He doesn't want you to know the truth. And that is a classic hallmark of authoritarianism. Every authoritarian government in the history of the world has tried to conceal and hide the truth from you and substitute for the truth their own ideologically driven pretensions. What could be more transparent and what could be more obvious than Trump scrubbing this study from the federal government's website?
Yeah, pretty clear what they're trying to do.
You know, doesn't refute it, doesn't present another study, just wipes it out as if he didn't. Thanks for watching our video, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and become a member today.